Welcome to ACF Chefs Forum. Now, more than ever, it's important for culinarians to connect, to share, and to offer inspiration and mentorship, which is exactly why we're excited to be here with experts for information just for you, the leaders and future leaders of the food service industry. I know that you're all very excited to meet Chef Pfeiffer, so let's start off with a quick poll about today's pastry subject. Have you ever made croissants from scratch? So we're going to launch that real quick. If you can just type in your answers, that would be great. And we're going to close it in just about 5 seconds. All right. Well, excellent. So Chef, it looks like we have a great group here today. We have 73% of our attendees saying that they have at least attempted to make croissants before. Well, I hope you're ready to be inspired. We're going to take you on a virtual trip to Chicago to learn more about laminated doughs. During this presentation, we'll be taking questions during the webinar as we are able to ask Chef following the demonstration. Please be sure to use the chat function to collaborate with other chefs and culinary students who are tuning in, and the Q&A function to pose questions to today's featured chef. So let's get the conversation going in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from today. I know all the culinary students from Greater New Bedford VOTEC are tuning in from the auditorium, so thanks for joining us today. I'm Jackie Pressinger, American Culinary Federation's Director of Strategic Partnerships, and I am thrilled to introduce a very special friend and colleague that I admire very much. Chef Jacquy Pfeiffer's exceptional career began as an apprentice in Alsace, France, and over his career, Chef Pfeiffer has established himself as a leading figure in the art of pastry, working at many world-renowned establishments across the globe. He's earned so many accolades and awards, and he's co-founded the French Pastry School in Chicago, which is considered one of the world's leading pastry institutions. Chef Pfeiffer was also featured in the documentary film Kings of Pastry and is the author of the James Beard Foundation award-winning cookbook, The Art of French Pastry. In 2020, Chef Jacquy co-created the Butter Book, an online on-demand content library where subscribers have access to hundreds of instructional videos on baking, pastry, and cake decorating. So without further ado, I'll pass the presentation on to our featured guest chef, Chef Jacquy Pfeiffer, along with Chef Julian Otto. Thanks for being here today, chefs.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And thank you to the new ACF president, Chef Kimberly Brock-Brown, for allowing pastry to be more featured within the ACF. I think it is needed, and we are here to help together with Chef Julian Otto, our master baker, who will show us his secrets on making laminated doughs. Okay. So this webinar is here to give you information about anything lamination, and we're going to focus on one product, which is croissants. Okay, we could talk about turnovers, about danishes, and so on, but at the end, lamination is lamination, which is pretty much rolling out dough and butter in thin sheets, fold those sheets and roll them again. This constant folding and layering will create a bunch of layers of dough and butter that will eventually separate in the oven through the action of the water in the recipe. So again, this is not here to give you a magic recipe. There's no magic recipe. But what we want to give you is enough information for you to adapt your ingredients of your choice to make the croissant that you want to make. And this can be a vegan croissant. You can use margarine and then oat milk or almond milk. God knows what. At the end of this webinar, you should know enough to get this recipe going. Okay? The first thing that we need to do is to talk about the ingredients, because they are very important. We start with the main ingredient, which is flour. So we like to use two different kinds of flours from King Arthur. One is bread flour and one is all-purpose. So this one has 11.7% of gluten. So the key here is to know that you need a decent amount of gluten in your flour to make sure that your dough has a good strength. We said the dough has good strength. That means the dough is not going to fuse and melt with the butter during the layering. So bread flour, all-purpose flour, whatever it is, you want to be around 12% of gluten, okay? That said, every flour will react differently. So 12% for one flour doesn't mean the same thing for another flour, okay? So my advice is that once you pick an ingredient, you stick with it. It's got to be a good ingredient, and it's got to be an ingredient that is user-friendly. So let's say if you have a flour mill next to your house in the countryside, you want to use their flour to make croissants. It might be good, but it might not be as stable as a flour like this, okay? That is manufactured for the industry also. So this flour is unbleached, unbromated, and I have more details. And it will give your dough enough strength, but not too much, because too much strength in the dough will make the croissant and the dough shrink, okay? It will shrink, and also the croissants will be doughy and tough, okay? So you want enough gluten and enough strength. But for instance, you cannot make croissants with cake flour. There's not enough gluten in there, and then your dough will not fight against the butter during the layering, and then you just become like a brioche, pretty much. Everything will get mixed up, okay? So that's for the flour. The butter, very important ingredient. That's why I name it in second place. It needs to have enough fat, okay? So this is the Plugra butter that we use here at the school. And we've been using it for 26 years now. And this is the best testimony to this butter, is because when students come to our school, they don't know what they're doing. And the butter is consistent enough for them to make all recipes, sweet dough, laminated dough, brioche, and so on. So you need a European style butter that has enough fat, okay? A butter that has less fat than that will have automatically more water, okay? The problem with that is it will make the dough more soft. It will make the butter more soft, and then mix with the dough as you're rolling it out, okay? Also, extra water means extra steam in the oven. So that means those croissants are gonna puff a lot, because the steam is gonna separate those layers, and the croissant will look beautiful, but towards the end, it will collapse. So try to find a European style butter that you like, and then stick with it. Now we talk about the water, which seems like an ingredient that we should not be talking about. But sometimes you have a lot of chlorine in your water. So if you have a lot of chlorine, what you do, you weigh your water and you let it sit on the counter overnight. What will happen? Most of the chlorine will evaporate, and then you'll have a better water than yesterday. Otherwise, use filtered water, and you'll be fine, okay? So water that is chlorinated very much will affect not only the taste, but also the fermentation of the croissant and the yeast, okay? So we talked about the water. Then we like to put a little bit of milk in our croissant dough because milk brings a very nice and smooth texture to the dough. Very smooth, very melt in your mouth. And we like to use whole milk. There's no point of using 1%, 2%, 0% milk, okay? Use the whole milk and then or alternative milk that has the same amount of fat, which is about 3.5% of fat. And then you'll get a very nice and smooth dough, okay? There's also lactose in this whole milk. And this lactose will caramelize during the baking and will make your croissant nice and golden brown, okay? Now let's talk about the sugar. You might be tempted in using all kinds of fancy sugars, but really just go for your everyday shelf-stable, user-friendly sugar, okay? In production, even in production, we cannot play games. We cannot just change things around. But even at home, if you constantly change ingredients, you're changing the formula and you're changing the end product. And at the end of the day, you're going to be completely confused. That's why I say in the beginning, pick shelf-stable and reliable products and stick with them. So the sugar obviously brings a nice sweet flavor to the croissant, but it also feeds the yeast. And that yeast will be able to create carbon dioxide and make the croissant rise, okay? Another thing is croissant is hygroscopic. That means it absorbs and retains the moisture in the air. It will keep your croissant moist, okay? It conserves the flavor, and I'm looking at my list. Obviously, it gives you a nice and brown finish once the croissant is baked, okay? So that's that. Now let's talk about the yeast, which is a very important ingredient. If you want to use fresh yeast, go ahead, but whether it's in a supermarket or even for us in the industry, many times we get fresh yeast and we are disappointed by the results because that fresh yeast is alive and it's not stored properly. So when we get it, it's half dead. And Chef Julian gets angry easily. But when the fresh yeast is not working, then we can hear him all the way to the office. So my recommendation is to use dry yeast from Le Safre, and this is a dry instant yeast. Why we prefer dry instant yeast is because you can add it directly to the dough, to the ingredients when you mix the dough, okay? There's another yeast called dry active yeast. So that yeast needs to be mixed with a little bit of warm water. And I asked Chef Julian, why don't you want to use dry active yeast? He's like, then if you add warm water to your yeast, your dough will be warmer than it should. So he has a good point. I gotta say that. And every once in a while he has one. So that's for the yeast. Then we have the salt. We prefer to use sea salt because it's less processed. But at the end, you can use any salt you want. During this seminar, we tell you what we prefer based on decades of production and trials and error. And at the end, you can play around with those ingredients. So the salt retains the water in the recipe. It also captures the color of the dough and the finished product, okay? It's a conservator also, and also it regulates the action of the yeast, which means if you misscale your recipe, well, your yeast is going to grow out of control. And if you put too much salt, your croissant will not rise. So that's why you got to pre-scale your ingredients really well and make sure you have the right amount of salt. So before we go to the croissant dough, I want to talk about some equipment. So I'm gonna move the sheet tray. And this is not an ingredient that you have to have, but it helps. So a thermometer is very important because we need to measure the temperature of the liquid in the dough. Also, if you're not sure if your oven is calibrated enough, you can stick this in your oven, and it will give you the actual temperature of the oven. So thermometer, very important in my eyes. Whisk, spatula, knife, scrapers. Those are tools that are very common and any bread baker should have. Okay. Then we have sheet trays. You can use a sheet tray like this, like aluminum. Okay, not a problem. But you can also use this one, which is steel. Okay, this is black steel or blue steel. Okay, and the reason why we like those is because steel conducts heat better than aluminum. Okay, but at the end of the day, any sheet pan will work. Okay. Then while I'm in the ingredient thing, a rolling pin, very good tool. We like those rolling pins that do not have handles, just like this. So the rolling is very even. And this one, you never put it in the dishwasher. You never put it in water. You never submerge it. You just scrape it with your plastic scraper as such. And then take a paper towel and you're done. Some last things. Chef Julian is going to make the dough very soon, but those things can be useful. A Silpat, Chef Julian is going to show you how we use Silpat silicone mats to roll the dough. And then the same company, Demal, they made this product called Seal Pain, which you can see me through. It has small holes. And before the seminar, I asked Chef Julian if he likes to bake croissants on those. He's like, if you have money to buy those, yes. Because what happens is the heat can go through the small holes and bake the croissant better, okay? But at the end, you can use parchment paper, not a problem, okay? Nothing is a problem. Then we are talking about the dough, okay? There's an initial dough when making croissant, and this dough is called a détrempe. And then after that, you have something called a butter book. Chef Julian is going to demonstrate this in a second. In the dough, we like to put a pre-ferment. A pre-ferment can be a starter, a polish, a sponge, things like this to add a little bit of acidity to your croissant. So it will add a nice sour flavor, and also it will extend a little bit the shelf life of that croissant because it's a little bit more acid. So usually we like to add about 10% of pre-ferment compared to the full recipe, the total ingredients, okay? So our method that we use the most is a polish. A polish is a liquid fermentation, which is just flour, yeast, and water that we mix and we let it sit for 30 to 45 minutes until it ferments. And then we add the rest of the ingredients, which are flour, sugar, a little bit of butter, salt, and yeast. So you're going to ask me, Chef Julian, why do you add a little bit of butter to the dough? So the reason why we add a little bit of butter to the dough is because the dough, that butter is going to encapsulate some of the gluten in the flour. And so it's going to prevent that dough from getting too rubbery. That's the reason why you see a little bit of butter in the dough, okay? It's going to be easier to roll, whether you roll by hand or by machine. That's the reason why you see a little bit of butter in the initial dough, okay? So the dough is mixed about 5 minutes on first gear and then 1 minute on second gear, okay? The last minute on second gear or faster gear is because we want a dough that has a little bit of a gluten structure. Chef Julian is gonna do something finally, and he's gonna show the texture of the dough, okay? Show it nice so our videographer can have a nice look. Voila. You gotta say voila, you know, you're French. Well, there you go. So we have a gluten window, we have some texture, but the dough is not like so elastic that it's bouncing back and forth. This is thanks to the small amount of butter, okay? So once you have this, you put the dough in the refrigerator overnight to allow the fermentation to take place, get those good flavors, and also to allow the gluten to rest, okay? So I asked Chef Julian, what do you prefer, to wrap the dough in a bowl and plastic wrap or another system? He's like, you can use both. You can use both. You can wrap it in plastic wrap and put it in the fridge overnight, okay? But depending on your kitchen, if your kitchen is too warm, sometimes that dough expands too much. So what he prefers is to roll the dough like he had it before, flat. It's about 1 inch thick, and then keep it like this in the refrigerator, wrapped in plastic, and then it will cool faster and it will not grow as fast, okay? So that's his trick. Then we need to do the butter book, Chef Julian. So for this, we use something called an acetate sheet. So this is a heavy-duty plastic, pretty much the same grade as a Ziploc bag, okay? And what he's going to do is going to smash this into a square, okay, Chef Julian?
Okay, I removed the butter like 1 hour ago about, to have the butter not too firm but not too soft. Yes,
All right.
And then I just go like.
This is why you need a plastic that is pretty sturdy because it gets beat up. Some plastic wrap might work for that, otherwise a Ziploc bag, but those sheets from chefrubber.com, they are very, very sturdy. You can wipe them and clean them and keep them forever, okay? And those are the same types of sheets that we use for chocolate work, chocolate decoration. All right, Chef Julian.
Okay. And then the goal is to have the thickness of the butter very even, to have nice and even layers in your dough after.
So this is.
You see on the.
That's okay. This is, we do this envelope right here. You see, we fold the sides, and now he's gonna roll the butter so the butter hits all the corners. Beautiful.
Just go gently. I don't try to press not too much in one time.
Yeah, there's no reason to go like crazy, okay? Better be precise.
And then to feel the thickness, to make sure I have like something even, I just pass between my 2 fingers like this, and I can feel the thickness of the butter.
So I get this question a lot. What is the thickness of the butter? I don't have my glasses. Chef Julian, this is about a 1/2 inch thick, no, a 1/4 inch thick, sorry.
Yeah.
1/4 inch, okay? But again, every chef has a different recipe, a different system. Just showing you what we're doing here, okay? So the butter also needs to rest in the refrigerator overnight. So now both of them are going to be super cold. Now before you start rolling dough, you got to have all your equipment ready. A big mistake is often is to bring the dough out first, and they're like, oh, where's my rolling pin? Where is this? Where's that? And then by the time you find everything, your dough and butter are too soft. Okay, Chef Julien, what are you gonna do?
Okay, I like to use a seal pot on my table, the smooth side down to make sure the seal pot is not moving.
It's not moving.
Okay.
Okay.
Why I like to use a seal pot is to make sure I don't have flour everywhere, and also if my dough starts to be a little bit warm and the butter too soft, I just like the seal pot on the tray and I go in the cooler for a few minutes.
Yes.
That's the first solution. What you can do also is to take a wood board like this, and I place it for 1 hour before in the freezer, and the wood will keep a little bit the cold, and then I work on my wood board.
He's full of tricks. Do you have a third trick?
I have some more, yeah. I can also use those type of
He's full of tricks.
ice pack.
So you can buy those online. Keep them in the freezer, and then you put it like this. You put another sheet tray on it.
Like this.
And now this is super cold, and this answers a lot of questions. My butter is oozing out. What can I do? So you can use the cold wooden board, or you can use the little ice cubes, trays, whatever you want to call those things. All right, Chef Julien.
Okay, I have a little bit of flour, rolling pin, and a paring knife. I have my dough that was in the cooler overnight, nice and cold. I need a little bit flour, not too much. And the goal is to keep the nice rectangle shape of your dough. I start to roll out, and I make sure before I start to roll out like lane-wise to have enough dough on the side for the butterbook. Like this, and then I continue.
And you see, you don't need a lot of flour, huh? Very little. Because the dough is super cold, the butter is super cold, nothing will stick.
Okay, and the goal is really to keep this nice rectangle shape, that when we fold after, we have these nice layers, and also to have the same thickness of dough everywhere.
So now the dough is about a 1/4 inch and the butter a 1/4 inch.
The dough needs to be the double of the butter to cover after the whole butter.
So I did a little arts and crafts yesterday. So this is your butter, and this is what Chef Julien is demonstrating. Okay? In the old days, not too long ago, we used to use this move, which is called an envelope. So the dough has to be in a perfect square. We put the butter. It just takes more work. And in production, if we can save a few minutes here and there, imagine you have to make 1,000 croissants. This system right here is better than this because it will save you more time. Okay, Chef Julien.
Okay, I have my dough with the right size, the butter. That's a very important step. The dough needs to be still cold, but the butter needs to be cold enough to be
Pliable.
If your butter starts to be too soft, the butter will go into your dough and you will have more like a brioche texture. And if the butter is too cold, the butter will start to crack and you will have like what we call a marble effect.
Yes. So the butter that you want, the European style butter that we use, even though it's very high in fat, it's still pliable. which is one of the biggest quality of butters for laminated doughs.
Okay, I open the butter. Place it on the top, while in the center. I warm up a little bit the top like this, and then it's very easy to remove.
Beautiful.
I keep this one, I save it, and I reuse again. Huh? The butter is well on the side of the dough. I fold this side over, the second one, and I make sure I will cover all of the butter, like this. A little bit flour, and then what I like to do is to cut the side like this with a knife, the second side too. And here you see the dough is coming up and down on this part, and then I really have these nice layers of dough and butter. I will not have too much dough on the side of my détrempe.
This is really a great trick because now you really have dough, butter, dough. Yeah? All right, Chef Julian.
I start to press gently to keep the butter like very even. A little bit flour.
You put flour if the dough sticks. If it doesn't stick, you don't put flour. Keep it simple.
And then you go step by step. Keep the nice rectangle shape and roll out evenly with the same thickness. For this one, I will start to give what we call a double turn.
So we call them turns, and they're also called book folds. Okay. The most important is to learn the technique. After that, what you call it, it's up to everybody. Okay. Voila. Beautiful.
About the size of the steel pads. Like this. And then I will fold about 1/4 of this side. I bring the second side against the first one. And then I fold one more time.
So this is what we call the double fold. Okay.
What you can do then, you just press gently to make it ready for the next turn.
And then how long you keep it in the refrigerator?
And then I go in the refrigerator at least for 30 minutes before I give the next turn, if I do it by hand. If I have a dough sheeter in a professional kitchen, I will give the single turn right away after to win time and I'm ready to shape.
I get this question a lot. My dough is too rubbery even after 30 minutes of rolling. I'm talking about rolling by hand now. And if 30 minutes is not enough to let the dough rest, you gotta let it rest longer. The dough is the boss, not you or Chef Julian. Sorry, Chef Julian. So Chef Julian, what are you gonna demonstrate now?
Okay, this one had a double turn already, like I just did now, and about 30-45 minutes of rest. Okay, then before you roll out, you have to make sure that you have your dough in the right way.
Yeah.
Imagine you want to open and read a book like this, okay? And you have it in front of you. And then what I like to do again is to cut the side. And this one will help me to have a little bit less elasticity.
Yes. So what Chef Julian was saying, don't roll the dough this way. You always have to have the opening in front of you, okay? All right, Chef Julian. Chef Julian, you're gonna demonstrate a single turn now?
Now I do a single turn.
It's full of tricks.
Again, I start to press gently. Always try to keep this nice rectangle shape and don't press more on one side or on the other side. to really have this nice even layers. Huh? Flip it over,
Okay,
catch
very
some
nice.
flour.
Okay.
Now we give what we call a singleton.
Okay.
I fold one time about until the center, and a second time.
Wow. So you've seen the single turn and a double turn. Okay. So after that, once all the turns have been applied, you roll the dough into a long strip, and then you cut the dough in triangles. So I did a small graphic. Jeff, if you can get closer. No? Oh, here we go. So there's a school of thought. You can make, this is the same strip of dough, same width, but you can do very long and skinny triangles. So that means when you roll it, the croissants are gonna get more rolls. Or you can use the other method, which you make a smaller and chubbier triangles, a little wider triangle. At the end, the dough will have the same weight. It's just a question of style, question of finished product, question also of time. Is it going to take you longer to roll this one than this one? It's up to everybody, okay? Now, I challenged my friend Chef Julian to do different foldings, and I said I need to be able to see the results. Okay, we're going to start with this one. Chef Julian, you're on stage.
Okay, this one has 2 single folds.
Can everybody see? Hold on, we're going to wait for, there you go. I'm going to tilt it, there you go. And then we're going to show the croissant. Voila. So the crumb is a little bit more open because it's only 2 single folds. And usually croissant is about 3 single folds. But we did that on purpose. So we show you that this is too open, okay? And the red is mimicking the butter. The red is butter, okay? So this is 2 single folds.
Yes, 3 single folds.
3 single folds. I'm gonna try not to move, yes. What do you have to say about that, Chef Julian?
Okay, here we can see that the crumb is a little bit tighter, but still very nice.
Yes.
And if I compare with this one, that's the 2 single turn, we can really see the difference of the layers.
So the more folds, the more layer, and the tighter the crumb, right here, okay? So at the end, again, this is to show you what you obtain based on the different folds. We are not here to tell you, you have to do this fold, otherwise your croissants are not gonna be good, okay? At the end of the day, use quality ingredients, use the method that you like, and the croissants will be very nice. So what do we have here, Chef Julian?
This one is 1 single and 1 double. And this one is like very close compared to the 2 single turns. And this one is what we did just before.
So 1 single, 1 double, still quite open crumb, yeah? But some people use this because you have to do only 2 folds in production. So a single and a double. If you do 3 single folds, it's more work for you. And if you do 1,000, 2,000, 3 croissants a day, it makes a huge difference. Okay? And then Chef Julian, you have the the last
The
one?
last one is 2 double folds, and this one is maybe the closer one compared to the 3 single.
Voila. I'm trying to angle it. What is this, two doubles?
2 doubles.
Yes. So you can see clearly the layering, the amount of layer, and then the finished product, okay? And your customers might prefer one way or the other. Jeff, I don't know if you can capture this or if this is too crazy. Maybe more like this, right? I don't want to mix them up, otherwise Chef Julian will get angry. At the end of the day, they all look beautiful. We'll show you croissants that we baked with all those folds. On the outside, they look great. I don't want to inflate Chef Julian's ego, but they look beautiful. And then at the end, you pick the method that you prefer. Chef Julian, you were going to say something?
No.
You forgot.
No. But the egg wash also.
Egg wash. You want to say something about egg wash?
Egg wash is a very important part before the baking. It's what gives you the nice color and the shiny of your croissant.
Yeah. There you go.
Some chef likes to egg wash twice, one time before the proofing, one time just before the baking. If you have a brick production, you just egg wash one time, and you also try to use a gun, electric gun. And I like to do my egg wash with 2 whole eggs and 1 yolk, a pinch of salt to increase the color and to dissolve a little bit the egg whites, and sometimes also a little bit of cream.
Yeah, and then the way we make egg wash is we teach you the lesson, and we just put all the ingredients, whole eggs, egg yolk, salt, heavy cream, and we just teach you the lesson with the hand blender. This way, there's nothing to strain, and then also it will, if you put it in a spray gun, like they do in production, it will flow nicely through the spray gun, okay? Chef Julian, you good?
I'm good.
It's about 11:44, 45, and now we can take some questions. Jackie, if you have some good questions for us.
We do. Thank you so much. Everything looks fabulous. Some of the questions that have come in from the chefs. One of the questions was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now, Chef?
Okay, now I can hear you better.
Okay, yeah. Wonderful. One of the chefs had submitted a question wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the vegan versions. Can you hear me, or Chef Julian, can you hear me?
I hear every second word.
Okay.
Yeah,
let me see.
This is Matt, the producer. Are you able to double check on?
Okay, now nobody moves.
Got a very tenuous audio connection, I guess. Jackie, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Chef, one of the other chefs tuning in was wondering if you could speak to more about the vegan versions of laminated doughs, and maybe some of the best alternative milks that you have found to work best.
Good. So we're not moving, right?
Okay.
Julian, do you want to say something?
To replace the milk, we like to use almond milk. Oat milk also is very tasty. It's gonna change the color a little bit of the croissant. The color of the whole milk is a little bit grayish. Sometimes you can put some eggs in your croissant dough. Here you just like remove your eggs, no eggs.
Yeah, we didn't have any eggs, so life is good. And what about the fat?
For the fat, you use what you call margarine, but you have to make sure it's a margarine without butter, because on the market you can also find a mix. They put a little bit butter for the taste and margarine for the pliability and the working of the.
Yes, and there is a bunch of butters, vegan butters out there. And what you need to do is to find a butter that has at least 82% fat, right? And so it behaves as much as possible as butter, okay?
Great.
Shortening is an option, but really the flavor is not there. So if anybody disagrees with me, I'll put some shortening on a piece of bread. I'll make them eat it, and then we'll see what they say. So those are our information regarding the vegan croissants. I would not use soy milk because it has an aftertaste that will affect the end result.
Okay, perfect. Another one of the chefs had written in that every time that they are baking off their croissants, they end up with a pool of butter on the pan, and they're wondering how to remedy that.
Love it, love it. When you proof your croissants, okay, the croissants have been shaped by Chef Julian, they look beautiful, and then he puts them in an area that is warm and humid. That area has to be between 77 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 25 to 26 Celsius, and not higher. If you go higher, what happens is the butter in the croissant, in all those layers, is going to ooze out. And there's no way to put it back in. So what we do, we put a thermometer in our proofer, and we set an alarm to 80 Fahrenheit. And when it goes higher, we just open the door to bring in a little fresh air to cool down the temperature, and we'll close the door again. Okay, that's why those tools and a scale, we didn't show the scale, but they are so important, because if your ingredients are not scaled properly, you might have the best butter, the best flour, but your ratios are off. Same for the temperatures. If it's too hot, the butter will ooze out, and that's it. There's also reasons why the butter oozes out right during the lamination, no?
Yeah, if the butter is too hot, too warm.
Yes. So if the butter is too warm during the lamination, it will not really be sheeted, and it will be in small particles that will eventually melt. Okay?
Yes, thank you. One of the other chefs had asked, I know we see a lot of these two-tone croissants now, and they were wondering how the method is different if you're doing a two-toned or colored croissant.
Yeah, those are very trendy, but you know, usually the pink or whatever color I wish the colored layer had some flavor. Chef Julian, you want to describe how to do the bicolor, croissant bicolor?
Yeah. When you mix your dough,
take the dough so you can show it. This one right here, yeah?
Yes.
There you go. Not this one, no? Okay, this one.
First this one. Okay, take this.
All right.
Okay, that's my dough. I will start to mix my dough, for example, the 10 first minute on low speed. And then how it looks approximately my dough, because this one was mixed until the end now. And I will take about 20-25% of this dough. I will add some color inside. Then when I use color, I try to use like natural color. But for example, if you do red, you need to put a lot of color to have a nice red color. That's why what I prefer to do is just to do a bicolor with chocolate. And then I just add cocoa powder and a little bit water also, because the cocoa powder will catch a lot of water. Okay, then now I have this part. Imagine this part is red.
Yes.
I know it's red, but
I can imagine it.
Okay, good.
It's red.
And then
I believe it.
You have your piece of dough here with the return ready to roll out and to be shaped. Okay? And then I will have my dough in red that you roll out.
Yep. So this is, remember, this is just the initial dough called détrempe that is just colored with a little bit of red. And then you're going to put this on top of the regular.
Exactly. I put this on top.
Voila.
Stick it like this. Voila. Tack. And then I will roll out my dough and shape it with the red side
Down.
outside. Yeah, to have it like
Okay.
outside after.
Makes sense.
Yes, excellent. Thank you very much. Another one of the chefs was wondering if you have found any methods to create a gluten-free croissant.
Gluten-free, sure you can. You just have to find a flour that behaves like the flour that we need here. Remember here, the flour, we need the strength of the flour so it's nice and elastic. So you can definitely make gluten-free croissants, but the flour is the key. Yeah, is your flour going to be elastic? Is it going to be pliable? Is it going to be rollable? Not the flour, but the dough made with that flour. Yeah, so that's the key. Other than that, everything is the same. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. We do have quite a few culinary students and culinary programs that are tuning in today as well. And they're wondering what advice that you or Chef Otto might have for those who are just starting out with their career in yes. baking and pastry.
So we love to inspire students, younger and not so young, you know, I mean, we see a lot of people changing careers. And so the key is to get your education from somewhere. It's romantic to go and work your way up in a bakery, and you start as a dishwasher and then you get better. But you need the foundation, the knowledge, the basics of the profession, okay? So you can go to a brick and mortar school. This can be costly depending on your finances. This is why here at the French Pastry School we have developed two different types of product. One is called the Butter Book, which is a series of recipes, on-demand recipes that you can just subscribe to the Butter Book, and then there's recipes there and you just follow the instruction, okay? Then we also have created 3 online courses powered by Ruby, a bread course, a pastry course, and a cake decorating course. What's the big difference is that in the Ruby courses, you have assessments, self-assessments, chef's assessment, and also will ask you to do finished product, and the chefs will grade your product and give you feedback. Okay. At the end of the day, whether you use a brick and mortar education, Butter Book education, or Ruby education, you need education. You cannot just jump in the water and not know how to swim. Okay, you gotta learn how to swim first. So I hope this answered the question, Jackie.
Yes, very well. And with that said, are there any final words that you'd like to share with the ACF community of chefs who are tuning in today?
Final words that I have for the ACF is what I started with. ACF chefs are very much into savory food, which I understand fully. But there's a lot of pastry chefs, master bakers, chocolatiers, cake decorators that are here to teach techniques and enhance what is done at work. Okay, so embrace pastry, please. We are here to add to the plate. Okay, and pastry is not that complicated. It just requires scaling, following methods. But we're here to instruct all those chefs who are interested in that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and a huge virtual round of applause as we thank Chef Jacquy Pfeiffer and Chef Julian Otto. We're truly honored to have spent this time with you. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you sharing your skills, your enthusiasm, your passion history with our ACF community of culinary professionals. So thank you so much. Amazing presentation. I wish I was there to taste those fabulous croissants.
Yeah,
and we hope that you'll join us again soon.
We're gonna have to eat all of those.
Yeah.
Well, we know we had quite an audience today. We had chefs tuning in from all 50 states, as well as from Canada, Jamaica, Mexico, India, Bermuda, and beyond. So it's true that food really brings us all together, especially those delicious croissants. So for those of you tuning in, please be on the lookout for a survey that you'll receive this week, which you'll need to complete in order to earn your 1 hour of ACF CEH. We also hope that you'll join us for our next webinar, which will be on October 26th, as we take you on a virtual trip to Boston. We'll be back again in collaboration with our friends at ProStart for an exciting celebration of seasonal cuisine as we explore fall menus and flavors during a cook-along with Chef Nick Callius of the Colonnade Hotel in Massachusetts. I know it'll be fun, so please register now to receive more information.